going on in Washington, D.C., and there's plenty to discuss. We are always happy to have with us Dr. Thomas Schwartz, political science professor at Vanderbilt University. He's joining us via Zoom. He's also a historian, which is great. And I'm just going to start taking the calls as they came in, the order in which they came in. Clint, you have been waiting for a bit. Clint, what is on your mind?
The 14th Amendment and Section 4, which says the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. Now, there's some other things I left out, but I've read lately that there has been some consideration of using this section of the 14th Amendment to overcome the budget fight that we're having now. It's a repeat of what's happened before. And so Clinton supposedly decided to just turn it over to the court system if he was to do that. So what's the professor think?
Okay, do you understand, Professor?
Have that power?
Using the 14th Amendment to pass some of this stuff, is that what you're saying?
Does the 14th Amendment give the president to say that the debt was incurred by the Congress and that the debt or the validity of public debt shall not be questioned?
Oh, okay. What do you think about that, Professor?
Well, that would be an assumption of presidential power that certainly would break with a tradition of Congress having full authority over financial appropriations and monetary appropriations that it's had. It's conceivable. I don't think it's going to be invoked in this circumstance. I really think that Congress wouldn't want to see that particular aspect of its power reduced by presidential authority. But it's interesting. I don't know enough about the specifics and the legal issues here that might be raised. One thing we have seen in recent times is that the president has been willing to use executive authority, as he did with the eviction moratorium, quite readily, and then have it struck down by the Supreme Court. So that would be what strikes me as interesting about this is it will probably go before the Supreme Court if he were to invoke this authority.
And that would be unprecedented, and that would be an expansion of presidential power that would certainly,
that's right.
It would have to be reviewed by the courts. But that's an interesting thought. Clint, thank you. That's an interesting thought. I hope it doesn't come to that, frankly. Let's go to Tom. Hello, Tom.
Good evening, gentlemen. I have a credit card through my bank. Due to some circumstances, I got in some pretty hefty debt. So I'm doubling up on it till I get it paid off. I know who I pay the credit card through my bank. What I don't understand is who does the United States of America owe that money to? Who do they pay? Am I making any sense?
You know what? I'm glad you asked that question, Tom. Yeah, because all we're going to do is pass a law, and we're going to borrow more money. I guess who are we borrowing the money from? Who do we owe this money to?
Absolutely. Who do we owe that money to, and who are we paying it to? I don't understand that.
Okay. All right. Do you know about that, Professor?
Well, yes. I mean, in effect, the Treasury sells securities that are purchased by investors. For a time, of course, earlier, China bought lots of our debt. Our debt is a good investment because the United States usually and historically has always met its obligations. So that's why investors buy securities issued by the United States. But you're right. I mean, basically, this is a debt. We print the money, we sell securities to investors, and then we owe them. We owe them continuing to pay the interest, and if they cash it in, we have to pay that. But that's who we owe the debt to.
And it's a pretty good bet that we would pay the payments, the mortgage payments, or the credit card bill payments. We're going to meet that, and so it's a safe investment, a safe bet. If they called it all in at once, we may have some problems.
Yeah.
But okay, all right. So it's bought up by people, and it's all part of securities and all of that. Okay, well, I appreciate that, Tom. I hope that helps answer your question. Let's go to Dorothy. Hello, Dorothy.
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm a citizen. I'm supposed to be a citizen of the United States of America. My husband served his time in service and passed on. And when they give these stimulus checks out, me and my son didn't get the $600. He was supposed to have 6, and I was supposed to have 6. And we have been done dirty about it. And I don't feel like I'm a United States citizen no more. The way people do people. Do they really know what to do, when to do? Because my Social Security, when they got the raise, they cut it. And then they gave it back to me a few months ago. My son is in bad health. He almost died a couple of months ago, not with COVID, but his legs is swollen up, cellulitis in both legs and feet, and bad heart and bad lungs. And I think I should be treated as a United States American.
Well, Dorothy, why are they saying why do you think they're saying you're not a United States citizen? Why do you think that's happening?
The reason I feel like I'm not treated like one when everybody else gets their income tax, and I've worked hard too, 3 and 4 jobs to feed my kids. I had 4. 1 passed away. 3 I raised by myself. Mm-hmm. And they won't give us our money like they should.
So it's the stimulus check. You haven't gotten it, and you feel like you deserve it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dorothy. That's interesting. We haven't talked about the stimulus check. That's certainly out there, and it's been heavily debated, but that's going on. I don't have an answer for Dorothy. Do you have any idea why somebody might not get it?
Well, there's all sorts of complications. The IRS, you have to have filed taxes. There's all sorts of things connected to getting this check. Dorothy should really call her Congress, the Congress. That's what they're there for in some ways, to handle that. Their staff usually does help in those matters, and that's what I would suggest. But there's so many things that can go wrong when you have a massive program like this, that people do fall through the cracks.
Hopefully, and that's what's happened in your case, Dorothy, that you've just kind of been overlooked. And that's great advice. Call your congressman. In Nashville, that's Jim Cooper. If you're outside of Nashville, look it up. Who is your congressman? Call their office, and hopefully they can help you. Let's go to Steve. Hello, Steve.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
I've got a question about the infrastructure bill. You was talking earlier how there could be 2 separate bills, and I get that they might go with a lower one, but is there a way that this fails? Do they have to have 60 votes in the Senate to get this through? Can Republicans block it, or is it just going to go through no matter what?
I like that question too. All right, he's talking about infrastructure. We can really talk about both. There is this 60 vote threshold. Let's talk about infrastructure, which you said there might be some Republican support. Do you think that is passed with 60 votes in the Senate side? How do you think if that passes, it gets passed?
Well, the smaller infrastructure bill that has more traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, this sort of thing, that one does have some Republican support, and it could get the votes in the Senate that it needs. The one that is more problematic, the big expansion, the $3.5 trillion one, the Democrats are going to try to pass that under this process called reconciliation, where they only need 50 votes. 50 votes, I should say 51, because the vice president would break the tie. That's where Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin come into play, because if they're not willing to vote for it, it would fail. But they don't need the 60 votes on that $3.5 trillion one. That's why that's why Manchin and Sinema have such power in this case, because their votes are absolutely essential if the Democrats want to win it. But the Democrats don't know they won't get any Republican support for the bigger bill. The smaller infrastructure bill did have, I think, 17 Republicans did vote for it, so it would have enough support in the Senate to pass.
And is that the kind of nuclear option or whatever, if they try and pass this with just the 50, is that something that leads to repercussions down the road should Republicans take over? How unusual is it to just pass with those 50 votes?
It's fairly unusual to do it that way. That would be, especially a bill of the size that they're talking about, 3.5 trillion, to do a bill like that with only 50 votes. And so were the Republicans then to come in 2022, I would think that they might try to trim it, to change it, depending, of course, on what their political majority was. They would probably try to upend it in some manner. But yes, it would be quite a statement to push through a bill of that size with only 50 votes.
But that's the only way you think it gets passed. It won't pass.
Yes.
Yeah. And Democrats seem willing to do that.
Yeah. No, I think all but Sinema and Manchin are willing to do it. I don't know whether Manchin can hold the line, and I'm not sure about Sinema either. What I think is the case is that they do want a smaller bill. They'll have to get some concessions. So it might not be the 3.5 trillion, but that's it's going to be a battle.
All right, we have to take a break. We have more calls. Rob, others, stay on the line. There's several lines open if you want to call in. Interesting discussion. There's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.